So since my last video, I got some very good feedback. Um, Basically, to breathe, take my time to think about the logic. It's okay to have some silence while you gather your thoughts, apparently. I feel the pressure to start talking right away and start working through it right away. Um, so I'll see if I can slow it down and really think about it first this time. So let's do it again. Let's see. I'm not going to do these two because I already looked at them and I don't want to cheat. Okay, total amount of points. So, our football team finished the championship. Hooray! The result of each match looked like X, Y. Results of all matches are recorded in the collection. Okay, so it's an array of strings here. Write a function that takes such collection and counts the points of our team in the championship. Let's see here, the result of each match. So which one is our points? Rules for counting points for each match. If x is greater than y, 3 points. If x is less than y, 0 points. If x is equal to y, 1 point. I'm not quite sure how this works. I think because I don't follow football. Oh well, this makes sense anyway, so I can still figure it out. Even without knowing football. Notes. There are 10 matches in the championship. Okay, so there's going to be 10. 0 is, okay, so x and y are always going to be positive numbers. In other words, positive numbers that are less than or equal to 4. So greater than or equal to 0, less than or equal to 4. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, the result of each match, I still don't understand why this is the point system, but I'm not a football person, so maybe it makes sense to a lot of people. But I can still solve it, so here we go, I think. Train. Okay, so first of all, points of our team in the championship. Okay, so there's going to be 10 matches. And basically, these are just the conditions here. So looping through these, now these are strings, first of all. So if I want to compare whether something is greater than, less than, or equal to, I'm going to have to make these into numbers so that I can compare them. So that's one thing to consider. And then I can write a conditional statement that compares each of them and returns these points. Or let's say add these points to a counter. I can make a counter and then add these points if any of these conditions are met as we loop through. So the main question here is how to convert the array from this format to an array that is not a bunch of strings. So let's see, x, y. This is where I can be silent and gather my thoughts for a moment instead of just jumping right into coding. Well, as a string, let's say as a string, this has length of 3. I could say that the first index 0 or I could split each of them. I could split each of them at the colon. That's another thing. Take a string and split it at the colon, but then that would give me an array of 2 strings, and then I'd have to convert those into numbers. And that seems like a lot of steps to take to me. is probably going to be an easier way to do it than that. Another approach might be to take index 0 and position 0 and position 2 of each string, and then assign those to basically convert those into numbers. On the other hand, you don't necessarily have to convert them into numbers if you use, I think that JavaScript can compare them without necessarily having to do that and still get it right, basically. So yeah, that is the main problem with this question, is how to convert this into a format where you can actually do what you want to do here. So basically, you're given an array. That's this. It's going to be called games, apparently. They called it games here. And what it's going to return is a single number. So let me just say return, just do the return. It's nice that I've started to develop the habit of starting with the return statement, because so many times I've forgotten the return statement and nothing happens if you don't return anything. So starting with the return is a good habit for me, at least. Okay, so what am I going to return? I'm going to return the count, right? Because it counts the points, or just points. Return points. There we go. And I'll go ahead and say points equals 0. That'll be a good way to start. Oh, my code here. Well, whatever. My code is going to go there. Okay, so points is going to start out at 0, and points is what I'm going to return. That's a good start. Now I'm going to do some pseudocode here, is convert x, y pairs into numbers, and then I'm going to loop through array, and then I'm going to say I'll just say for each. I might just do a for each, actually, because that's a pretty basic thing, array method. Okay, so for each pair, I would like to make them into pairs instead of a single string here, definitely. For each pair, yeah, and then I'm just going to do this. Let me just write that for now. I would like to separate these into x and y, okay? That's what I'm going to do. So that's how I'm going to write my if statement. If x is greater than y, this is me jumping the gun again. I'll just start with this one. Points plus equals, or is it equals plus? No, I think it's plus equals. Yeah, plus equals. Plus equals 3. Okay, so, and then I'll do that for these as well. It's greater than, less than, and equal to y. Okay, so I'll do those for those as well. I may as well just do it because it feels good. It feels just good to just do something, right? Especially something that I'm sure about. Else, if that's x is less than y, I'm going to see points plus equals 0. I'm not sure if I even need to do that addition, but that's okay because it's just not doing anything. Good. Else. Oh, yeah, I could say that for last, actually. How about if x equals y, you're going to say plus 1, else just return. That's what I'll do. Because, like I said, you don't really need that adding 0 portion here. So I have, if it's greater than y, you add 3. If it's equal to y, you add 1. They shouldn't have made this a hyphen because it looks like a minus sign. Like, I assume that this is a hyphen and not a minus sign because you're adding points, counting points for each match. Yeah, so I just assume that I'm adding points instead of subtracting. So this hyphen is really confusing. It really could be minus, but I'll find out. Once I run it, I'll find out if that is the problem, but it's good that I realized that that could be a problem because that'll be the first thing I look at if I fail the test. All right, so else return. Okay, so, and this is going to be inside for each loop. Okay, so all I have to do now is to split these into pairs of x and y. Now, maybe split is the way to go. Let me think about it again here. I want to assign the first to x and assign the third to y. So my question is, if I do basically for each, I would do a map, I suppose, because it would return a new array. Pair, map each pair so that for each pair, we're going to see pair 0 no, that's not going to do it. You know why? Because that's just going to reassign that as x. So I want to say oh, by the way, I'm giving myself a time limit this time because I went way over time last time, and I'm not going to have an infinite amount of time if I'm at an interview. Eventually, I'll get stuck and I'll just have to say, well, that's as far as I can get, or eventually the time will start running down and they'll say, start like giving me hints or helping me, like that's happened before as well. So time limit 10 minutes. I have no idea how much time I've actually spent so far, by the way. Oh well. Yeah, so the main thing is, however, even if I don't finish this one, I have basically talked through the logic and I've talked about what I plan on doing. I've also talked about possible errors that could come up, and I've also talked about basically what the hard part is, at least for me, and that is converting the figuring out how to change the array in a way that I need for the function to make it do what I want it to do, basically. So if I did split these, let me just think through this, okay? If I did split these at the colon for each one, I would end up with a little array of two numbers. I mean, two strings that are numbers, basically. And then I think I could just compare them as is instead of converting them to numbers anyway. So for then basically this for each that I deleted here. for each pair. Then each of the elements would be an array in itself. And I could say I see for each pair, and the pair is an array of two numbers. Instead of x and y, I could say pair index 0 and pair index 1. So I could do that. And I think that is what I shall try, okay? So games is the array. Yep, map. Now I'm writing on the same line here. Let me just say what I'm doing here. Split each element into pairs. Okay, so element for each element, that's each of these. I'm going to say element split, and I'm splitting it at the colon here. Now, this is where I would love to test my code and see what the output is, just to make sure it's doing what I think it should be doing. But that's not an option in whiteboarding. You don't get to see console logs or anything like that. So if it was doing what it's doing, it's going to be in a format of basically like 3 and 1, and then the next item like that is what it's going to look like. Okay, so then what I'm going to do is, let's call this something else. What pairs equals, so because this is a new array here. Okay, so now I'm going to say pairs dot for each pair. So what am I going to do for each pair? That's where this is going to happen here. So I will move this all up here. Whoops, I missed. There we go. For each pair, and then get that indented a little better. Doesn't have to be pretty on a whiteboard, I suppose. And then this is not going to be x and y. This is going to be pair index 0 is greater than pair index 1. And I will just see if that works. Okay, put that there. Put this here. Okay. All right, let me just look through this here. Let me see what's going to happen here. Okay. So I have the points. That's the main thing, because that's what I want to return, which I did not return. Oh, I did. It's just way down here. Hello, points. Okay, points. Pairs. Games.map. And supposedly I split it there. I hope so. For each pair, which will be this pair 0, pair 1, which should be 3 and 1. Now they're strings, but I'm pretty sure that JavaScript can still compare them. It's a very forgiving language. And if it can't, if that ends up being a problem, then I will end up just converting it to int, converting it to an int before running it through this process. Otherwise, I'm going to test and see what happens. Something is wrong. I have an extra something with brackets and parentheses again. Here we go again. All right. This happens more often than it should. Okay, yeah, because I have brackets and parentheses all over the place. It's not here. 19. 19. What? There is no 19. This goes here. This. There we go. That's a 4 each. That's what's happening here. Did I get everything else though? That's that. That's that. I think everything else is fine. Let's try it again. I passed all the tests. Wow. Wow. Oh, that feels really good. Oh, that feels really good.